Always has to be a shot at somebody.
I know.
They're never clean.
They have to run. That's the only shot they have.
They do it for 82 games. We're about to find out.
He already has shown what he's capable of.
Did surprise me. I thought we were going to hang in there.
This makes me think that we do need to be humble.
I actually think you're the only one who deserved that.
Hey, Bobby Manning here, and welcome to the Garden Report. After the Celtics beat the Cavs 117-115, they survive a last-second scare there with, I don't know, not much of a possession by the Cavs at the end there, with a pretty good opportunity to tie this or even win it with a set three-point attempt. Instead, Mobley takes a leaning long two, and the Celtics bounce back quickly from Minnesota on the second half of back-to-back. No Kata, no Derek White for the first time this year, and the bench crew spot start from Xavier Tillman, and of course Payton Pritchard win it for the Celtics. Noah Dalzell's here. Where do you want to start first? No, probably at the end.
Let's start right here. Let's start right here. This chat was disrespecting Payton Pritchard after that game. The chat was disrespecting Payton Pritchard. They were disrespecting me on Payton Pritchard's behalf. And I feel like he had a good response. Maybe he was on the show. Maybe he just wanted to play better. But this was like as good of a bounce back as you could have imagined. And I don't know if you watched the pregame show, Bobby, but Scal was talking about how on the bus today, Pritchard was just like so down and like had this like face on, you know, and Scal was like, he's going to have a monster game just based on his like vibe today. So it was funny to see that right away come into effect, because that is what they were all, him and Drew were both kind of saying pregame. And then he comes out and scores 42. And not just that, but hits all the clutch buckets, all the clutch free throws. And I thought the turning point was when he picked up the third foul and Joe was going to pull him. And he was like, no, keep me out here. Because that's not a guy that's going to get 6 fouls very often. So it's like the common knowledge would be like, okay, pull the guy, but keep him on the floor. He's feeling it and they needed him. And that was, I mean, obviously he's the headliner, but there's actually a ton of performances that are worth kind of going through here.
Yeah, and we'll stick on him for a minute here. He was awesome, and I do like that as a starting point there, the third foul, because they're down 5 at the time after the bucket. The Cavs scored right after that offensive foul. He's able to get a 3 to go, drives downhill for a layup, hits another 3. Jaylen was finding him all night from 3 with some good catch and shoot opportunities there, and in the blink of an eye, he had an 8-point stretch in about less than a minute, really, from like the 5:10 mark to the 4:18 mark there in the second. And that's what got him going, because it looked like this was going to be another game where he fell out of it pretty early.
Yeah, and I think credit to Jaylen, who I think early on kind of recognized that Payton had the hot hand and kept looking for him throughout the game. And obviously last night was Jaylen's night, and tonight Jaylen comes out and turns the ball over a couple times and misses some shots that 24 hours ago were going in. And he finds a way, despite not having it, to have a really impactful game. 19 points, 11 assists, 12 rebounds. It's only his 4th career triple-double, first of the year. But I thought those two guys were both drawing so much attention at a certain point in this game that it was like a nice little two-man game of Jaylen drawing 2, kicking it out to Payton, Payton drawing 2, kicking it out to Jaylen. And so in that regard, like, I think when he has this freedom and like that ability to shoot as much as he did tonight, and obviously he was feeling it from the jump, like these are the kinds of performances that he's very much capable of.
Yes, that second quarter stretch was important, but the most important one was the end there. And that's why they pulled away with this game, despite a big shot by Garland and Mitchell pushing it to 2 and the Cavs almost tying it late. And I feel like that's how every single Celtics-Cavs game goes. They're up like 8 to 10 points, and with 2 minutes left, you're getting ready to go set up the show, and all of a sudden, Garland 3, Mitchell 3. Oh, it's going down the last possession.
I'm like, where was this all game, Donovan Mitchell? Like, I didn't even notice him the whole game, and then he does. This is every time. It's crazy.
Mitchell is the king of scoring like 10 points in the last 3 minutes of a game to make it a game again.
Last like 45 seconds in this case.
Yeah.
So insane.
Pritchard's the one who put them up 11. He got to 32 at that point with 5 straight points after Jaylen's free throws. So they go from up 5 to up 11 pretty quickly there in the midway point of the fourth quarter. A couple free throws.
Biggest shot though. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was going to get to the one at the end there, because he gets a couple free throws, 4 free throws, push the lead to 8. Cavs go on a little bit of a run there, get within 3 with 45 seconds left. And that's when he hit that mid-ranger, and obviously a couple free throws right after that saved the game effectively. And then, you get to the end there and they're able to get a stop on top of that. So he made crucial plays down the stretch as well. And obviously Jaylen had a chance to put this away at the free throw line too, or at least put it to 3 and miss one. So it's critical. Pritchard, every time he scored down the stretch, put the Cavs out of reach, despite all the scoring that they did down the stretch of the game. But you thought there was one play in particular you want to point out?
Yeah, just the jumper with 25 seconds to play. I mean, that 27 seconds to play, you know, Donovan Mitchell just hits a 3. It's a 3-point game. You don't score now. The Cavs have the opportunity to tie it up. And in fact, Donovan Mitchell did come back 6 seconds later and hits another 3 to cut it to 2. So that pull-up jumper that he had that brought him to 40 points, that won them the game ultimately, because it was great that it's great when the guy that's in rhythm is also an elite free throw shooter, which obviously Payton is. And he hits all 6 or all 8 that he had in the final 2 minutes there. But that shot was the one that gave them a 5-point advantage that now the Celtics, you know, Donovan Mitchell comes out, hits that 3, but it's still a 1-possession game with Celtics advantage. So that was awesome. And it's just like, to me, is the difference between like a great player, a good player, and a superstar is consistency. And Payton hasn't been great every single night. Obviously, last night he wasn't great, but he has responded to his bad games very well this season. And so I think he's becoming more consistent. And if you look at his overall numbers this year, there's a reason why they're good in totality, you know. But one of his worst games in recent weeks was last night, and he follows that up with his best game of the year. And I think that's been a story of the season a little bit.
I knew I was forgetting a play. So this was the one right here.
Yeah.
This was crucial. I'm pissed we almost didn't mention this. There you get stuck in the backcourt. I think they were up 2 at that point, right? Because this was after Jaylen split the free throw, or this was before Jaylen went to the free throw line and split those free throws. So they foul, or right before they foul, Celtics had to call a timeout. They only have 3 seconds to get it across half court. Walsh threw it the opposite direction down the floor to where they needed to go. So Pritchard had to go against a triple team in 3 seconds to get it over half court, and he did by like 0.1. They almost turned it over.
And this is literally what I thought about too when this happened, is that there are very few basketball players that would be able to maneuver that. And so that viral video of Pritchard's dribbling in the garage, like as a high schooler, that was the first visual I had when that play happened.
Oh man, who posted that in the chat? I knew I was forgetting something. Peter Celtics, thank you. That was the play of the game. The jump shot was big, the free throws were big, but the Cavs would have had a golden opportunity to win the game if they caught the Celtics on 8 second there, which they've had a couple 8 seconds recently. They had a 5 second out of timeout in this game. Like it's gotten a little wonky with some of the violations with them lately, but Pritchard was on top of things here. What was the biggest difference compared to last night, you feel like?
2 things. One, obviously, the production from the backcourt. Derek doesn't play, but Anthony and Payton both were awesome in this one. When Payton goes off, you know, because of the early 2 fouls, Anthony came in and just took over the offense. And I was thinking, I know John's probably not joining the show, but it's exactly what we've been talking about yesterday, where it's not even about starting or about him playing more minutes. It's about when he's out there being the guy. And he had a stretch where Payton and Jaylen are both on the sideline, and Anthony kind of takes over there. So you got some great offense from him. Obviously, 42 points from a guy who's been averaging 60, and that's always going to help. But the third thing is that Jaylen Brown finally got to the free throw line. And I don't know if it's because he sounded off yesterday or if the Celtics sent some clips to the league, because it had been getting ridiculous. We talked about it last night.
You keep saying that. You think they did?
Because, you know, I actually do think they did. That's not like reporting, but that always comes out later when you go back and you're like, oh, and they sent clips to the league. I mean, there were some ridiculous moments in last night's game, because I went back and looked at the missed layups and the made layups from last night's game. He gets hit every time he goes to the basket. And there's a certain level of like, it happens to LeBron, it happens to the guys of his stature, but tonight he got a much better whistle. And so he finishes with 20 points despite making only 3 field goals. Like, that has not been the kind of whistle that he's had. And I honestly don't think the Cavs were fouling him more. I think he got a much better whistle. So that certainly helped as well. And then 4th thing, Jordan Walsh was awesome. Like, massive plays, massive offensive rebounds, putbacks, just he was awesome. Like, he is really becoming a legit NBA player. So he was an X factor in this one. Career high 14 points.
Yeah, this is his best game ever. I do want to get to him a little later, but I want to stick on Brown for a second, because the free throw thing in this game, like the timing of it, and he ends up with 16 with some of the ones late. that's got to tie his most ever, I believe, from what I was looking at earlier. I think 14 tied his third most, 16, I believe, tied his most. So right after the complaint about the officiating, how he's been called this year, he just gets droves of free. And obviously a couple of those were intentional by the Cavs at the end there, but a whole different game in terms of the calls he was getting. Obviously he shoots 3 for 13 from the field, so he does a ton of his scoring at the free throw line in this one. But not only him, but the team ends up getting there 29 times. And that's not a boatload for most teams. But for this Celtics team that comes in last in free throw attempts by nearly 2 per game, shoots 18 a game, that's a pretty massive jump. And this is a milestone night for them this year because in game number 20, this marks the first night all season where they've shot more free throws than their opponents, and they shot 16 more than the Cavs in this one. So I do feel like
I wasn't gonna bring it up.
What?
I wasn't gonna bring it up, but you said there was a 0% chance that was gonna happen. That every night they're gonna get out, and the next day this happens. And I was gonna let it. I thought about it when I was joining the show, and I was like, let it go. You don't have to do this to him, but you brought it up, so I had to.
Yeah, pretty crazy timing for Jaylen and me on that one. But they've lost every single free throw battle all year. They're 0-18-2 going into this one. They tied the Cavs earlier in the year. They tied Philly at one point. And did they do anything different, or did they get a better whistle, or what do you think it was?
I literally think things that were not being called fouls throughout the season were called fouls in this game on Jaylen. Like, he had 16. And then obviously down the stretch, there were a few that were intentional, so that pads your total a little bit as well. But 16 free throw attempts for Jaylen after I think he had 3 last night, taking out the technical. Like, yeah, it happens. I mean, sometimes it's a different crew. It's maybe once you start noticing something or there's a certain kind of mood. Yeah, but.
So 4 were intentional, the one on Pritchard and the one on Jaylen late. So still ends up being a lot for Jaylen. 14 would have tied his third most ever in a game. And then for the Celtics, if you subtract 4 from theirs, it's still 25, which is pretty big leap above what they've been doing for most of the season. And we talked about coming in. I didn't have the magic number last night, but the number coming in was 7.7. So about 8 points they're getting outscored by at the free throw line every night. And that's a massive number to overcome. Let's say coming into a game, you're like down 8-0, or, you're 8-point underdogs, however you want to describe it. Like, it's a sizable hole you're in to start every single game. And in this one, obviously, you were able to score in a bunch of different ways. Decent night from 3, not a great one. I thought they were pretty good from the 2-point range in this game again. But the free throws got them through 23-9 at the line. And that's pretty much the margin in this game and then some. Like, that would have swung it if they weren't able to get there, and Cavs were in this one. So I thought that was a big development. Does it carry forward? I mean, you said it's the call. It's not an approach change or anything by Boston there. So they're going to have to continue to get a good whistle if that's what it ended up being in this game. But I do like the way they were cutting at times here. The offensive rebounding pressure of Walsh in particular, who got there 6 times, was able to generate some free throw attempts for him. Pritchard got there later in the game. Obviously, again, 2 were intentional, but he got there 4 other times. So it was mostly Jaylen. So he's going to be the driver of this whenever they do get to the free throw line. But it does feel like they increase their aggressiveness, going to the rim a little bit more, driving more methodically. And they do turn it over 16 times in this game and lose that battle. So I feel like that's probably where they lost a little bit, to try to ramp up their free throw attempts. But everything's just going to be a balance with this team. And it almost does feel like we're talking about win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. When they do try to emphasize one thing, it feels like another weakness or another hole in the roster kind of pops open, and all of a sudden they're trying to, deal with, that issue. I felt like the turnovers early were killing them, and then later in the game, it got a little bit better. I don't know if those two things are related, but when I see the uptick in turnovers along with the uptick in free throws, I'd have to imagine they probably were trying to be a little more aggressive, trying to draw them.
Maybe. I don't think so. I don't think there's much of a correlation. It's possible that Jaylen had a couple more reckless drives because 6 of the 16 turnovers were his. I think he got called for an offensive, maybe a couple of travel or 2. But there were a few dead ball turnovers, which you'll live with. I think the live ball are the ones that you definitely want to cut. But yeah, they had 8 of those turnovers within like a minute into the second quarter. And that was why they were not able to pull away despite a scorching hot start from 3 and Payton's takeover and all that. So to be able to win, like what does Joe say all the time? Like you want to be able to win in different ways. And the turnover edge has been a pretty consistent thing they've had. And in this game, they're able to overcome that and win in a different way. So like that's what a good team does. And this team has not been a good team, right? They've been a maybe average team so far this season. But these are the kinds of wins that make a good team, right? And I think they're still
There's a crunch time win.
Crunch time win, second night of a back-to-back without Demish Keita and Derek White, two of your most important players. The first game of the year with multiple starters missing. I mean, we've talked all year about how without Keita, this team has been one of the worst defensively, right? Like he has been such a swing factor. So the fact they're finding ways to like win without him is super impressive too. Like it's Detroit and now against this Cavs team, two of the best teams in the Eastern Conference, or at least should be, although the Cavs have been a little disappointing this year.
Yeah, and fair to note, Jared Allen out in this one. Max Strus has been out to start the year for them. So they had a handful of guys out as well in this one. Some of their big man depth was hurt for this game as well. No Lonzo Ball. So this ended up being a game where both teams were diving. They had two-way guys coming off their bench. Tomlin, I never even heard. Usually I know every single guy on the court. I'd never heard of Tomlin, who was playing a bunch of them in this game. 22 minutes for him. So both teams were shorthanded in this game. Both dove pretty deep into their bench. We saw Amari Williams again. Anthony Simons played a much bigger and more important role than we saw last night. So we'll get to him in a little bit. And Jordan Walsh stays in the starting lineup. Xavier Tillman fills in at center for Demish Keita. So we'll get to all those guys. NHC has a good comment here, though, as we wrap up the Jaylen discussion. When JT had a bad shooting night, he'd rebound and assist. That's exactly what JB did tonight. Triple-double. Fourth for Jaylen in his career. Also, shout out to Walsh, who had the double-double. So we'll get to Walsh in a little bit. But I do feel like this is a good description of JB's night.
Well, I think the big thing on Jaylen has been people, like the knocks on his game has been that he's like a one-dimensional scorer and that he's too expensive for his contract and that he can't be a number one option and he's not going to command the kind of attention that Jason Tatum has been able to command. And it's only, it's been 21 games, 20 games, and it hasn't been perfect, and they haven't won at the rate that we're used to them winning. But I think he's pretty much squashed a lot of those complaints, right? Like we're seeing that he is drawing the kind of attention that a number one option does. We're seeing that his playmaking has improved, and I think the reason that his assist numbers didn't immediately improve to begin the year is because the guys around him couldn't shoot. So like that's ultimately like he gets the triple-double today because Payton goes off, right? Like that's how it goes.
All of his assists were to Payton.
Yeah, literally. A lot of them were to Payton. And then the other piece of that is I think he's making a more concerted effort on the glass because early on this season, I remember being like, why are they struggling so much to rebound? Like it's just a couple guys that are gone from last year. And I was honing in on Jaylen, and Jaylen was one of the guys that was really struggling. And I think he's made like a tremendous leap in that area. I don't think it's like he didn't know how to rebound before, but he clearly realized a couple of games into the season that he needs to be like a leading rebounder for this team. And so this has become kind of a more normal stat line for him, 12 rebounds, whereas early on in the season, he was not putting up those kinds of numbers. And you're watching, it's like there's box outs where he's not getting the rebound, but he's putting his body on the biggest guy on the floor because they're playing small ball. Like he's just done a lot of things that aren't even showing up on the stat sheet. And I think that was never a critique that I agreed with, but something that I heard floated a lot, especially going into the season, is that he's not going to be able to be an all-around player and carry the offensive load. And I think that he's pretty much proven that that's not true.
Yeah, when he got to 11, I was curious if he was pushing to his career high in rebounds, but he has actually had some big rebounding games in his career at certain times. That's not consistently his job, so they happen pretty sporadically, it looks like. Most Jaylen Brown rebounds in a game comes out to 15. And what did he end this one with? 12. So drew close, but he's had 2 15 rebound games in his career, 3 14 rebound games in his career, and 5 13 rebound games in his career. So he's done it in the past, but the most recent time he had a big rebounding game was November against the Clippers earlier this year. And then you do have to go back a little further to March 2024 to see his last big rebounding game on this level. So it doesn't happen often. It feels like he's getting better at it lately. They haven't played big as much lately. In fact, they went small often again in this game as they have over the last week or two here. So there's an onus on him. Walsh, who's out there a ton at that position, Minot, who they're still trying to sneak in as a small ball center. Those guys just have to rebound. And as much as we talked about the rebounding issue being absolved from moments earlier this year is how I'll describe it. Like, they've still ranked at the bottom of the league in terms of grabbing boards in their own end. So it continues to be a problem. Interestingly enough, this huge Cavs team, who on paper you would say going into a game is going to give you a lot of trouble on the boards, didn't early, and then again they turned it up late in that department and ended up winning 16-15 in the offensive rebounding battle. But this was another game where early I'm like, what? Why aren't they crashing? Why aren't they attacking the Celtics where they're weakest? The Cavs are in a weird spot right now, especially in 2 games now where the Celtics have had their numbers for large stretches of these. So we'll continue the conversation a little bit here. I want to tell the people about our great sponsor, PrizePicks. And there's so much going on in the holiday season, especially with sports. I'm sitting there all Thanksgiving, as many are, watching football all day. It's the best time of year for sports. You got the bowl games coming, basketball matchups every night, playoff pushes in football. It's all happening at once. And while you and I are out here making decisions every day, what gifts to buy, what to eat, which game to watch, we've done that a lot over the last couple of days here. There's one place where it feels good to be right, and that's PrizePicks. Love PrizePicks, and there's a new feature alert over there. They have early payouts, and if your lineup gets off to a hot start, you may now have the options to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. And your fantasy season might be over. I say this all the time, is the best part about PrizePicks. If your full season fantasy team stunk it up, you picked the wrong guys, injuries ruined your team, with PrizePicks, you don't have to wait until next year's draft. They let you play fantasy football every week. So pick your favorite players and win when they hit their stat projections every week. No draft required. You just pick your team. And you know how it goes. Pick 2 or more players, pick more or less on their stat projections. Drake May is going to be playing tomorrow as we record this. So I would add him to your team right now. More on passing yards, touchdowns, all the statistics are over there. You just got to pick more or less. And I'm going more on May always on my team here. So go over there, check that out. There's a lot of great stuff going on between, again, the basketball season. You can mix and match players from different leagues. There's a lot of fun ways to play over there. Flex play, always free squares going on as well. So check all that out and more over there. Again, it's as simple as pick more or less on 2 player stats. And when you get your picks right, you could cash in. Download the app today and use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. So where do you want to go next on this one, Noah?
Where don't I want to go on this one? There's so much fun stuff to talk about. I think we should talk about Jordan Walsh, who was an underrated contributor here because nothing was super loud and there were guys that put up bigger numbers, but I think this was the most we've seen from him as far as a potential scorer and a crasher. And he had back-to-back plays in the fourth quarter that one was an offensive putback that he had an and one and that he finished. And then one was an offensive rebound that he got that led to a 3-pointer. And so that was in back-to-back possessions. And so, you know, last game we talked about how they didn't get enough from Derek and Payton, and one of your starters was scoreless, which is not a huge deal because that's not Jordan's job to score. But if you can get Jordan, you know, in the dunker spot, if you can get him crashing, like, you're going to find your offense is moving a lot better. And so I thought tonight he bounced back as well. And like he only took 2 shots yesterday, but he can give you baskets, right? He can crash. 6 offensive rebounds for him is awesome against this Cleveland Cavaliers team. So I thought that he was in 38 minutes for him. Like, Joe has been not committed to playing any of these guys for an extensive period of time, right? Like, if he doesn't have it, he'll go to Baylor, he'll go to Ugo, but Jordan kind of earned being out there for almost the entirety of this game.
Yeah, early fourth quarter in a game. It's in a game where you win by 2. It's hard not to look back at a play where he steals the defensive rebound back from Hunter, gets fouled, goes to the free throw line, hits a pair right there. They're only winning by 4 at the time with 9 minutes left. That puts them up 6 rather, after hitting a couple free throws there. And then they obviously go on to win this game. Big rebound after that. Rebounds throughout the fourth quarter on both ends. And playing aggressively. He's tailor-made to the system. Ends up fouling 5 times here, but he's disruptive. He's forcing steals. He's blocking shots. And it's nice to see him play with some assertiveness on offense now too, where he can find different ways on the floor to make shots, get to the free throw line, cut. I think he's a good cutter. I think he's a good screener too. There's a lot of different ways you can use him. And this is like almost one of your favorite players I know is Josh Hart. trying to think of some other guys in this mold, like guys who just do everything.
That's a great comparison for tonight. I thought that tonight he had some Josh Hart in his game, which has not necessarily been the comparison that I've had for him this season.
Yeah, no, and I think that's the kind of player he is. He's not a great shooter, but he's going to shoot some threes, rebounds above his weight, can pass a little bit on the move, 1 assist in this one, and then able to impact the defensive side of the floor too. I love the fact that he's found this role in the starting lineup, and this was the 8th straight start for him here. I don't know if it's going to continue. He's had some lows through the stretch that you would have thought, especially coming out of that Brooklyn game where he got replaced by Hauser in the second half and only played 90 seconds after halftime in that game. I thought he'd be out of there after that, and they'd be switching starting lineups again, but he stayed in there. Last night again, quiet night. You maybe could have mixed things up with a couple starters missing, but he stays in there again. And we had the conversation with Minot, right? Is he going to be that 4-man for the rest of the year here? Is he going to take this role and run with it? Hard to say that after what happened to Minot here, but this is a young player who you're investing in long term, who you probably see being more of your future than you thought to start this year. So I think, we talk about like, is Simon's going to be here long term? How much of a role do you give him in that case? You want Walsh to be that running mate with Brown and Tatum potentially when Tatum's back next year. And as long as Walsh can hold down and grow in this role, I think you do ride some highs and lows to try to see if he is a starter on this team into the future.
For sure. And I think when you were looking at the potential, what you could accomplish this season, like that was going to be a big thing. Can you find some of these pieces? And it's so amazing how much a career can change in a month span. Like, I don't think he's ever going to look back from this, right? Maybe he'll get relegated back to 15 minutes a night, but he was a consistent DNP, and now here he is.
November 3rd, he's a DNP, and then he entered the rotation after that and never looked back.
Yeah, it's incredible. And what's been most rewarding for me to watch when it comes to this team so far this season has been that it's not just Jordan. And like tonight, for example, Josh wasn't as high offensively, he was over 5, but he has 2 big blocks that help contribute to the win. Ugo had one of the biggest plays of the game.
Ugo had a huge stretch.
And then hits a 3 on the second possession, and that extends the lead to 7 or midway through the fourth quarter. Like each of these guys has very little opportunity to actually impact the game, but they're doing it as best they can. And I think that's why this team has somewhat overachieved. Baylor Shireman, I tweeted at this out yesterday, but he's shooting like 60% from the field and 55% from 3. And somebody replied like, he's averaging 4 points. And that's the point, right? Like you only get a few shots a game. Like you want to hit those shots, and it's so hard to do that. But in that span, like when he does come in and take his 2 shots per game, like he's been effective. He's picked his spots well. And a night like tonight, every basket counts. And so the difference between going 0 for 4 every night and going 2 for 4 every night, it adds up when it comes to having multiple guys that are in that role. So Joe, we've talked a lot about the shuffle and the in and out of the starting lineup and the inconsistent minutes. He has gotten a lot out of these guys. Like you have to tip your cap to him. And it's the credit to the guys as well. It's a credit to Brad Stevens for finding these players and drafting them and whatever else. But like, I think their potential has been maximized this season, honestly.
It's pretty amazing.
There's going to be
watch
a
game like this. Yeah, the guys who are going into this game, what they're doing with their minutes, the Amari Williams thing still, not that he had a massive impact or much of an impact in this game, but the fact that he's on the NBA floor already through 2 games here is pretty amazing, because I don't think anybody pictured him being part of the rotation at any points this year. And he is, when Kate is hurt here with the team, trusted. Joe was talking on the radio, and I want to get to Tillman here, who's obviously the bigger part of this, but quick Amari second here. Joe, talks to Grandy on the radio before the game, and he always does a good pregame session with him. And he was just talking about how much better Amari's gotten since preseason, which surprised me that he would give him that level of praise and, acknowledge that level of improvement that he's had there. And then just the trust that you talk about all the time with the Maine system up there to be able to get those guys ready to go. But the fact that they got him ready to go in a month? Maybe 2 months if we include training camp. It's amazing to me that a guy who at Summer League looked like he was just learning how to screen the way that the Celtics screen for the first time, and some of the stuff that they were teaching him, the basic fundamentals of NBA basketball not that long ago. The fact that he's trusted to play real minutes for this team at this point blows me away. I know you wrote about that the other day, him getting into that game, and obviously played a tiny role in this game, but it did strike me that he was out there again, obviously with Kate out over Luka Garza.
Right. And I think that's been part of the flexibility of like there were moments where Joe was relying on Luka for 20 minutes a night, but he is happy to not play him, right? If that's what he feels was the best decision. I think defensively they gained some stuff from having somebody like Amari out there. Perfect contest on the last possession. To be honest with you, when I saw Amari
for the height out there, yeah.
When I saw him checking into the game, I was like, oh, he's been sitting for so long. Like, I think you got enough guys that can guard this last 1 second, like without Amari. Like, I get nervous about that because you want to have somebody that's completely locked into the game and completely locked into, converting on in that and executing on
they
that
used to
final
put Taco out there.
I know, but at the end of the day, like this is a guy that's wasn't only playing in Portland up until a week ago, but that's the point, right? You want to show Amari, like there's a reason why you have to stay locked in. You're contesting the game winner, and he does a great job. He contested it as best as they possibly could have hoped for. So, like, yeah, I just think that the big pictures we're continuing to see like this. Like the project, the way that this team operates and the way the connectivity between Maine and Boston is, like it all works for a specific purpose, right? And I know I've gotten made fun of for how much I cover Kata and Jordan Walsh, and I was watching the Maine Celtics play today from 3 to 5 p.m. on my couch, like it was a
Did
NBA
they play
Finals
today?
game. They played the Westchester Knicks. And they won. They've won 6 straight. And Phil Pressey's done an awesome job, regardless of who's playing. But I know when I start talking about the Maine Celtics, it's kind of like, oh, here she goes. But at the end of the day, you look at who's actually playing on the, for the Celtics team. Baylor spent his rookie season in Maine. Jordan and Nimi were in Maine at the same time together, developing chemistry. Now they're one of the best defensive duos in the league as far as net rating goes. Like Luke Cornett, obviously we know, Sam Hauser. Like this has been the pipeline for how you get on the floor unless you're drafted as a star. Like that's kind of just been how it's been over the last 5 to 10 years in Boston. So I do find it really interesting. And Amari, I think, is still a ways away. And honestly, I didn't think he was great in his 5-minute stint, but he made nothing terrible, but it wasn't as impactful as his previous one. But at the same time, the fact that he's out here is great for him and his growth, and he'll be back, next Saturday he'll be back with the G League, I would imagine, when Kate is all good, and he'll continue to get those reps, and you're definitely seeing that growth and that progress from him. And I think Ron Harper is another guy that you're going to potentially see on an NBA team soon because he is a pretty good basketball player.
He would be if he wasn't on the two-way. Someone would be scooping him right up. But the Celtics obviously made that shift to throw him over there. There's our main minute. We got to sneak one in while John's not here.
I think, you know what I'm saying though? Like, I get it. Like, I know it's annoying because it's the G League, but is there not a track record now over the last few years, especially with this team, that it's like we should be looking at Maine, we should be thinking about it?
Well, here's not to go too long on this, but the distinction I'll throw is that certain guys don't spend a ton of time up there. Like Sharman was up there to get some minutes early last year. I'm not sure.
He spent a few months there though.
He did spend a few months there. And then Kata was up there sparingly, but he was with the NBA team a lot that first year trying to back up Porzingis and rest nights for Horford and all that different stuff that they were doing.
He's a defensive player of the year in Stockton,
you'll give him credit for the development he went through in Sacramento, I'd say. And obviously we've talked to Jordy Fernandez and some of the guys who are out there for his growth and development out there in the G League. The G League's a real thing. Like, it's 20 years in now, and
JD Davis
so much
is in the Houston Rockets rotation, by the way.
Oh, JD.
So.
He's in the rotation now?
He's in the rotation, and he's been playing well. He's been playing really well. He had 18 minutes the other day in a normal game. So
there you go. And sometimes it's for other teams. It's not always your team that you're developing these guys for. And that's the way it ended up being for JD, who was up there for 3 years. Let's talk Tillman, though, who started this game and had a much bigger impact than Amari. Surprise start for him. I was guessing that it was going to be 3 wings, probably, with Kata and White out. And they, trade the Simons and Pritchard minutes. But instead, they go a little bigger with Tillman at the 5. They do go 3 wings, but it's Tillman over Garza and Amari and some of the other options that they had there. Chris Boucher doesn't play in this game. And we hadn't seen Tillman in a while. What did you say? 9 out of 10 games he's DNP coming into this one?
DNP. He had played 5 minutes in the last 11 games.
Yeah, and I couldn't believe how much of an impact he had on this game. 3 steals, a couple steals that turned right into baskets the other way, 3 offensive rebounds, 9 points. He had a sizable impact on this game, and in his minutes, they played Cleveland even, which I feel like for a guy who had fallen out of the rotation, you were starting to wonder again, is this guy going to have any role on this team this year, playing-wise? he did a good job and played 30 minutes too. It was a surprise choice for me, but he came through, and again, the depth of this team on display.
Yeah, it was an amazing decision, honestly, because he didn't play against Detroit when they didn't have Kata, right? And you think that would be the opportunity. And then he starts in this one, like you never would have been able to guess
It
that,
just
right?
sways like crazy, these
Yeah.
rotations night to night.
But the one thing about Xavier Tillman, and I don't think this is the case of every NBA player who consistently gets DNPs, but he is 100% locked in. He's a great teammate. I'm working on a feature story about him that will hopefully be out tomorrow morning, depending on how my night goes. But this guy is regarded by his teammates as like the greatest teammate, by previous teammates, by current teammates. And so I think there's a level of like, he doesn't build resentment or animosity as he's sitting on the bench the way that some
I don't think
guys
I've
might,
ever
which
seen
is
anyone handle his
at all.
role better.
Yeah, and there, then when his number is called, and this is not the first time, right? We saw him play spot minutes in the finals that were hugely impactful. We've seen last year, all of a sudden, Joe will call his number. Like, he's always ready to go, as far as knowing everything and
He
being
stays
locked
ready.
in and all that. Yeah. And I think there's limitations to his game that were present in this one. Like, I think he airballed a 3 and hit the side of
The
a
threes
backboard
are
on another
rough,
3,
yeah.
right? So he hits 1, he's 1 of 5 in this one, but the ones that he misses that don't usually look great. But someone here said, he is a pro. Like, he's just a pro's pro. And that's what as everybody says when you talk to them, that he uplifts the locker room. Jaylen Brown referred to him and Derek as 2 of the leaders on this team. He picked him out of, he went out of his way to mention Xavier Tillman as one of the leaders. And Joe said he's a vet on this team, even though he's 26 years old. So tonight he got an opportunity and he made just enough impact to warrant that opportunity, I thought. And was like an unsung hero in this game.
Yeah, someone in the chat just mentioned the sequence before halftime, turning a steal into points the other way. And, there were moments throughout this game that he stole a couple points, stole a possession. He had a sizable impact on this game. And the threes were tough to watch. And there are limitations, as you mentioned. The rim protection isn't great with him out there. He's not a phenomenal rebounder, though he had a competitive night in that department here. It's nice to see that he can play. And maybe he will be on the Blake Griffin plan here or something where he's off for 9-10 days, gets 100% fresh, and then can give you 30 minutes here. And that has been part of the rotation too, that they've tried to do this year, is leaning on guys who are a little fresher, looking at who's played more, who's played less night to night, and thinking you might get some jolt or energy out of guys who have been sitting around for a little while. I think that's why they went to Boucher after the Kata injury in the Orlando game. Tillman tonight, I'm sure that was a significant part of it after you lean on Garza and some other guys on the previous night, a back-to-back situation. I'm sure influenced this decision. I'm sure there was some matchup or number that Joe looked at that bode well for Tillman coming into this game as well. Cleveland obviously wasn't playing the double bigs here, so you didn't have to match that quite as much. I'm just amazed because I did not expect them to even play, never mind start, and then you get this out of them. It's unbelievable what they're doing, utilizing the entire roster top to bottom here. Everybody's involved save for Boucher at this point. And again, he got an opportunity a week ago or so here. So they've stayed true to their word on a lot of how they were going to handle this season. And it's a big reason that they're back to 2 games above 500 at this point with a really good win here. I want to give a couple shout outs before we continue here because it's Cyber Monday tomorrow and we got the hard hats lined up. We got the sweatshirts on deck. And right now, the hard hats are only $35, Noah. Right after the show, get on there, jump on, use the code Cyber Monday. Go get yourself one. You got them in white, you got them in green. Can throw one on after a hard hat win. Was this a hard hat win, Noah?
Yeah, I would say so.
I think Jimmy would have been wearing the hard hat tonight. Underman against one of the better teams in the East. They were obviously
They're
underman.
2-0 against the Cavs now.
Yeah. And they were up by 21 in this game. They beat them by 20 last time. It's pretty amazing. And this goes back to my dream at the beginning of the year. It's going to poll in the chat. Was this a hard hat win? I think that's a good question tonight. This is a team you thought they would have had trouble with coming into the year. There's a team that many people probably had as their pick to make the finals out of the East, just given the roster that they have and what they've done the last couple of years here. Obviously, last year they had the 1 seed and tremendous regular season. They haven't lived up to that overall here to start this year. And the Celtics actually look like a pretty good matchup against them. And this is why I keep saying, no, I have this vision at the end of the year of it being something like Celtics-Cavs round 1. Maybe Tatum's back. Maybe he isn't. and the Celtics still getting the benefit of the doubt in a series like that because the Cavs have just disappointed over and over again in the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of this Cavs team, and I think they've dealt with injuries that have impacted them quite a bit. But at the end of the day, you have, I looked at the 2 starting lineups, and on one side you had Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, DeAndre Hunter, and then on the other side you had, Xavier Tillman and Jordan Walsh starting, and Sam Hauser. Like, it was, you still would think on paper that this Cavs team would be the better team, and yeah, honestly, like watching these 2 teams play twice a season, that'd be a fun playoff matchup. There have not been many teams this year that have felt like the Celtics can't hang against them. The Rockets are the only team that's blown them out from start to finish. And the Knicks obviously was a really tough one, but they clawed their way back into that one. And we get a rematch on Tuesday, so that'll be a lot of fun to get to see how they stack up against the Knicks.
Yeah.
But a lot of like the first Cavs win was the turning point for me of like, okay, this is what the Celtics team can be, because it was their first good win of the season. And after starting 0-3, and then they beat the Pelicans, which was great that they got a win, but obviously the Pelicans are the Pelicans. Then they're home against the Cavs and they blow them out. And that was like a turning point moment for me, honestly. And so it's been cool to see since then they've had a lot of these, a bunch of these really good wins where you're starting to see kind of the pieces come together, and then some tough losses too, of course, right? And that's why they're not the most consistent team right now. But that first Cavs game to now, like there's been a lot of growth from this team as well.
Yeah, for sure. And it's happening alongside tight margins. You have a big lead in this game and it disappears. That's happened a lot this year in these different games. So it's always going to be a grind. It always feels like it's going to go down to the last couple minutes, last possession in many cases. But they're getting better in those situations too. Maintaining a lead or coming back, trying to take a lead in those situations too. You feel pretty good about them in both of those spots. Last night, they almost come back down double digits with like 2 or 3 minutes left in that game. And it would have been a whole different conversation about them if they pulled that off as well. Obviously, the ending wasn't great there, but they've made themselves competitive with 2 of the better teams in the league here. I'd call the Cavs a top 10 team, probably, give or take. Maybe they're a little lower than that based off their start to this year, but I think pedigree-wise, roster-wise, they're a top 10 team. Then I do put Minnesota in that top 5-6 category here. So you come out of this back-to-back with the guys that they had out, with the guys that they had banged up, and you take this. I think this is what they have to do this year. Scrap out some wins. I can't imagine that they're going to win on Tuesday against that Knicks team, but as you said, they'll be competitive. You get the Wizards on Thursday, who...
Imagine it, Bobby. It's very possible. I want you to envision it.
This is a tough week for me.
It'll be tough.
No, this is a tough week for me, right? Because Tuesday, I'm going to want to say they have no chance. Thursday, I'm going to want to say 100%.
It's a small thing. It's a very small chance. That's all you have to say. You don't have to believe that they're going to win. You just have to know that the possibility's out there.
There's a possibility.
Why is it so hard?
I don't know. The Knicks kicked their ass in New York that night. I know there might have been some stretches that you like there, but remember that quarter? What was it? The second or third quarter? It was their worst quarter.
They don't look like that anymore.
Yeah,
they didn't get one rebound.
Karl-Anthony
Towns was reaching over Jaylen Brown's head and getting rebounds. That Jaylen has not been rebounding like that anymore. Like, I mean, they could blow them out again. The Knicks are one of the hotter teams in the East, but that Celtics team was very much figuring everything out at that point. That was the second game of the year.
Did the Knicks end up winning tonight? Yeah, 116-94. So they're still on fire. Brunson's playing out of this world. Got 20 points from Josh Hart, who's coming around after the early season injuries. They look great. And they were my pick to win the East to start the year. I still feel pretty good about them. So I am a little scared going into Tuesday, although it's in Boston. Celtics are playing better, as you mentioned. They have the depth here that the Knicks still haven't quite figured out in terms of their bench. So there are some opportunities potentially to compete in that game, some areas that they can take advantage of, especially with Pritchard playing like this. If he can carry that over, and Jaylen playing at the level he has to start this year, you have to imagine Kata will be back for that game after resting tonight. So, and let's talk about Derek for a moment here, because he rests this game effectively. Joe said before the game, I know Jay King's out there and Gary Washburn reported before the game that it's not going to be a long-term injury issue for White here. He rests this game with a calf, I think they said. So I'd imagine he'll be back on Tuesday. He probably needed to take a seat and just catch his breath and sit out a game after the start of the year that he's had here. And again, we've talked a lot about it. It hasn't been all bad. But he, more than anyone, looked like he needed a night off after some of the stretches that he went through here. Keita gets a rest after carrying a massive load the previous night through the ankle injury. He had told reporters out there that he feels like he's 100% fine. So I didn't expect a rest night for him in particular, but obviously not the worst idea with some of the load he's had to carry to start this year. So they squeezed in a rest night here and won pretty convincingly, which is amazing. We talked, can they survive one starter being out? They did against Detroit with Keita out. Now they survived the game without Keita and Derek White against this Cavs team, who, again, were missing some guys, but had their key contributors in Garland, Mitchell, and Mobley. This is unbelievable that they're able to win this game. Not only that, but take a 21-point lead in it.
Yeah, I didn't think they were going to win this one, honestly. This is probably one of the more discouraged games that I had going into the night because we've said for years, right, that the Celtics are a different team with Derek White sidelined. And we know this year they've been different with Keita sidelined. But at the same time, I do like when some guys are out, it opens up opportunities for everybody else. Like Jordan probably doesn't get 38 minutes. It's good to have a game that Xavier Tillman plays because while his attitude's been awesome, it's good for a player to be able to actually come in and get 30 minutes on the floor because he might go back to not playing again for a couple weeks. So there are some upsides of resting guys beyond just the rest for them and like kind of bumping everybody up in the rotation. I continue to be amazed with Jaylen's ability to play through this difficult schedule. And once again, another road back-to-back. And I think it took them hours. They landed very late last night. Scouts at like 2 a.m. So it
They
was
had a delay, yeah.
Yeah, tough back-to-back. And then here they are once again. You know, Jaylen gives them everything he has after dropping 41 last night. Like it's been impressive the way that they're able to kind of push through different injuries, I think this is their third back-to-back where they're traveling, which is tough. That's the toughest for injury recovery and all of that. So
They're gonna have another one later this week. There's a 6-game and 9-day stretch, I believe.
Yeah, DC Lakers. So it's tough, but honestly, like the way I look at it is this is how you build these guys' character too. Like these guys don't have the same NBA experience that Jaylen Brown and Drew Holiday and Jason Tatum and those guys had. And so now Jordan Walsh is learning how to play when you landed at 2 a.m. and he's a young guy, right? So like they're well suited for this, but I think that's been the most impressive part of all this is the way they've been finding ways to win, even in the face of adversity like this one. I didn't think they were going to be able to overcome this. And I like that it's a different guy too. I like that it wasn't X at all against the Pistons and it's X in this one, like it just kind of shows the malleability of this lineup.
Yeah, and Hauser technically slots in too for White
and
has a good game too. So he was effective moving back into the starting lineup as well. He deserves a little mention from this one as well. And he's starting to play a little better. Yeah, we killed him for the misses late last night. But he bounced back in a solid way tonight. We haven't talked about Simons, and I'm glad because we got into it on him again last night. I feel like there's not a lot to debate about or ridicule or just get angry about with him here. This was just a good game from him. Gave them what they needed through some deep bench lineups. When they got into some of those first half lineups with White obviously out, Pritchard off the floor, Brown off the floor, it's the Simons show, and everybody else is just trying to figure out where to fit in around him while he's dribbling around and trying to create a difficult shot. And he hit him here. He created offense in the stretches of this game where they could have gone ice cold. And credit to him because that's his job right now. He's trying to do a lot of different things. But honestly, more than anything, they need him to come into games and just create offense through some of these lineups that don't have a lot of facilitators out there. I like the game he had tonight, and I like the fact even more that he and Pritchard were both able to have awesome performances on the same night because obviously they've been trading who can play well almost on any given night given the lineup decisions and minute decisions that go between them.
Yeah, that was awesome. And like I said, obviously Anthony has the hot hand late in that first quarter when Pritchard picks up the 2 fouls, and picking up early fouls can sometimes really stunt your offensive flow. Like Payton hits his first 3 shots, cut right out of the gates, a deep 3 to start. Then now he goes to the bench and you're thinking to yourself like, like he finally had it. And then he has to go and now they're going to go ice cold. And instead it felt like his hot hand got transferred over to Anthony Simons, which is obviously the luxury of having such a proven bucket getter coming off your bench. But I get, like I said this earlier in the show, but I did really like the fact that offensively there was a stretch there where he was the number one option, right? Jaylen and Derek and Payton were all not on the floor. That hasn't happened a whole lot this year. And so that's how they should use him, especially when guys, they're down Payton or Jaylen or Derek or one of those guys. It's like, now you really need him, right? But that's how you get in a good flow. And I've been really impressed with his shot making, even in a small sample, right? To hit a like last night's game, he had 5 points, but like he had 2 tough shots when he had 0 offensive flow at all in last night's game. So it's clear he's an extremely talented scorer, but I did like the fact that he got some stretches in this one where he was empowered to be like the guy, right? The scorer on the floor. He kept them afloat there through some tough moments.
Yeah, and he got his 2-pointer off to start this one too. I was looking at his percentages coming into the night, and I think he's like 43 from the field, which isn't great, but 40 from 3, 41 maybe, rounding up. And that spoke to me, missing a lot of layups, missing a lot of floaters inside, and he was able to get that shot off here. If you do the math, ends up 6 for 7, or 6 for 7 on 2-pointers in this one. Short fadeaway shots in the second quarter that kept it close, while the Cavs were getting some great shooting from Tyson and Proctor and some of the other guys that were coming and hitting shots around that time of the game, hitting some driving layups going to the rim. He unleashed a nice bag in this game through some of those sections, as you said, where he was empowered and just able to do his thing. And that's something that they've talked about a lot to start this year, is letting him be himself. Like, they're trying to change his game and fit him into their system and make him do things that he's never done before. I had a funny conversation. I'll throw this out here, and I won't say who it was, but I had a funny conversation with someone who played with him recently in Portland, I guess I'll say. And I was like, hey, are you noticing something different defensively with him? Like, are you seeing him try more on that end? Or are you just seeing something with him that has changed from back when you played with him? And this guy was just like, yeah, he's bending his knees. I texted him the other day. I've never seen you bend your knees and get in a stance defensively before. And I was like, all right. I think it was a little tongue in cheek, but
was it off the record or on the record?
I'm not gonna say who it was, but
no, I know, story. But like, was this person being interviewed, or was this just like a conversation?
No, we were just chatting. But
okay. That's a hilarious thing to say about a former teammate.
No, it was a funny story, and I think what you see with Simons here is like, this is just getting more comfortable for him. They're running more sets that are comfortable for him. They're putting the ball in his hands more, which I think is a good setup for him. I even saw some guys screening for him in this game who you wouldn't typically expect to. Like, I think I saw Jaylen set a screen for him. Like, they're just setting him up more. And this is all I really want to see with him, is just put him in some positions where you can take advantage of his skill set. Because he does one thing really well, maybe at the highest level in the league, and it's put the ball in the basket. And I know there's so many other parts of the game, and this team's trying to emphasize different things here, and they're playing a style that doesn't always suit him. But you do have to put the ball in the basket sometimes, and he's so good at it. And when you go through these nights where you're just not able to do that, or you have guys who that's their job when they're out there and they're off the floor, like in this game, it's so refreshing to have this, because we were screaming last night, like, oh, there's so much pressure on Jaylen. He has to do everything. Pritchard, like, they're keying in on him this year. White, he's moving up to the second row. He has to do so much. And there is this other guy sitting here who led his team and drew all those double teams and did the most scoring for his team last year, who sometimes sits and plays 2 minutes and a half. And it can be frustrating to watch.
Yeah, and I think tonight you saw the best case scenario here, where obviously Payton's playing well, but Anthony comes in and there's 0 drop off on either end, really. And so yeah, we'll continue to see how it goes. I think it's going to be an up and down journey with him. I think there are going to be games where defensively he makes some mistakes early on, and Joe wants to go with kind of his more defensive oriented lineups. And as we've said, I know we had a lot of discussion earlier this year with John about whether this team is, whether the offensive players are being kind of relegated, Sam Hauser and Anthony Simons and all of that. But at the end of the day, this is a top 5 offense, and this is like a middle of the road defense by the advanced numbers. And I don't know how much to trust the defensive ratings and the offensive ratings, that they're flawed stats, but like, it's actually, if you by looking at the numbers, you would think that defense has been more of an issue. So therefore you may want to kind of prioritize having defensive oriented players on the floor. So I think you're going to continue to see this kind of up and down season for him, but I would like to see more consistency, that when he's out there, he is being, they're running plays for him, the ball's in his hand, they're kind of finding him as much as possible. And obviously it's harder to score when there's not the gravity of a Jaylen or Derek or Payton out there. But I think he does just fine. Like, it seems like he's kind of used to being in that position. And that's what I saw tonight when he was on some of those really tricky lineups where I was almost like, this is really impressive that he's still getting a shot off, because if you look around, there were not a ton of offensive options out there with him.
Yeah, I wish I could rattle off the names of some of the lineups he played in out there, like Ugo and Shireman and Hauser and center Tillman maybe. Like he was out there doing it alone at stretches of this game, and that's what makes it impressive. It's what makes his efficiency from this game impressive. He did exactly what he needed to in this game, and I thought among a bunch of little plays from Walsh and Tillman and Ugo and guys like that, like I think you can shout out those three guys for doing small moments, small plays in this game that added up in a game that ended up being decided by 2 points. But the bulk, the workload in this game had to come through Jaylen's playmaking, and he did it in a lot of different ways, rebounding, passing, as well as screening. I like Jaylen's screening in this game. Simons, who just had to get his shot off, and Pritchard, who was amazing as well, and was the lead contributor in this game. And I guess we'll ask again, Noah, is the All-Star campaign back on track here for Payton Pritchard after 40 minutes? Or 42 points, rather?
No, because there was not an All-Star campaign, and this remains one of the more misunderstood tweets. He has All-Star potential. When I tweeted this, he was barely playing. It was March of 2024. He was a bench player that even Sixth Man of the Year would have been like a high aspiration. And I still think he has all-star potential. He hasn't played like an all-star this year, but he has all-star potential. There's probably 75, 80 players in the league that I would say have all-star potential. So that's
75, 80?
Yeah, I would say so. That have the potential of being an all-star. Because you're looking at really young guys too,
Ooh, that feels a little high. Of rookies
that have. You think?
I might go close to like 40. But we'll make a list. We'll rattle off some names and see how many we can get to there.
Potential's the key word. Potential's the key word.
You got to cash in on potential.
I think this is a key fundamental difference between the way we view things, Bobby. Is part of it is that I think everything is possible, kind of, which is part of why when we talk about like the 0%.
Anything is possible.
Anything is possible. Yeah. But listen, I said this last night, and I'll say it again now. It's obviously easier to say it now, but he's had a good season for the Celtics team. Like he really has. And because of the fact that there's been this Payton Anthony dynamic that emerged as soon as they traded for him, and one of those guys is going to come off the bench, and Anthony's obviously the more proven scorer that has scored a lot more in this league and has been the number one option. It put a spotlight on Payton's season. And anytime he has a quiet offensive game, I think everybody starts to freak out of like, why is he in this role? But nothing that we've seen this year has shown us that he is not a starting guard in the NBA. And I think sometimes that narrative is a little bit disingenuous, in my opinion. So we'll see how the rest of the year pans out. We'll see how his numbers continue to pan out here. But the three-point shot has totally come around. In the last 10 games, he's shooting over 40% again. So it was just a really cold start to the season that was obviously going to be adjusted because he's a good shooter, same as everybody else that's a good shooter that started cold.
Yeah, and I'm looking at his box scores lately, the 42 tonight. Last night was a little disappointing. We talked about that a ton on the show last night. 16 against Detroit, 19 against Orlando, 13, 22, 30, 24 coming into this with a bunch of assists. He's up to 4.8 assists per game this season. He rebounds well. He defends well. He just does everything at the second guard spot, and that's what allowed him to become a shoe-in starter this year, and I feel like that's what you would describe his season as. Is it all-star level? No. But he's been a good starter for this team. And when you started filling out the lineup after all the guys who left and the Tatum injury and all the different things that you needed to actually be competitive this year, him filling out the box score, him ball handling, him being a defensive cog on a team that can compete on that end, those were all things you were going to need from him. So, you look at the shooting, it's 45 from the field, it's 34 from three. That's probably where you're a little disappointed with him to start this year, but he started ice cold, like freezing.
Yeah, he's on the up. He's on the up. Sure.
Yeah, starting around early November. And I feel like he's handled the struggles he went through better than White in terms of getting to other spots on the floor, doing little
I'm responding to this comment.
Go ahead.
Anthony Simons also has all-star potential for what it's worth. A guy who has led a franchise in scoring for 2 consecutive seasons undoubtedly has all-star potential. Is he an all-star right now? No, but that's like people are like, and I know it's not just me, but like the idea that people think I right now think he's an all-star. No, it's just that's his ceiling. And I think that at the time that felt like maybe that wasn't what people kind of saw. I think now people kind of recognize that a little bit more. But he's going to be the second leading scorer on a playoff team in a few months. That seems pretty realistic to say.
Ooh, what's it at right now in terms of the
He's the second leading scorer right now. He's been the second leading scorer almost all season. Derek's been like lagging like a point behind for most of the year.
That's impressive. I don't think many people would have predicted that coming in, despite some of the ways he maybe has disappointed to start this year. 16-2 just ahead of White coming into tonight. So yeah, he is the second leading scorer on this team. That's 2 games above 500, competing each and every night. He's drawing a lot of defensive pressure. And you know what I don't think people realize? White and Pritchard handle the ball on this team more than Jaylen does. So they're the ones facilitating. They're the ones running pick and roll. They're the ones drawing some of the initial defensive pressure, full court pressure, which has exploded around the league. That's another thing I think you have to acknowledge here is that defensive pressure and the way teams are guarding this year has gotten so much more intense. Teams are fouling more. Teams are playing more physical. So who's drawing that on the Celtics team? Obviously, Jaylen is to a large degree too, but Pritchard and White are the ones bringing the ball up the floor. They're the ones playing huge minutes. They're doing a lot of stuff right now, and the shooting hasn't been where you've wanted it to be for those two, but they do, as we say all the time on here, make up for it in other ways. And you do have to come around to get to where you want to get to this year for both of them, and hopefully that'll start happening for White here. But it has been happening for Pritchard, and this is what I think we imagine. It's funny as we have this discussion, I make fun of you here. No, I actually did have him in all-star conversations this year because I thought he would be so empowered. We'd be seeing some of those nights like where he'd play at point guard with everybody sitting out and he'd have like 25, 7 and 7 or something like that. I thought we'd see a lot of that from him this year. We really haven't. So I don't think he's going to end up in that discussion by February, but I still think his season's been acceptable for what you needed from him at that spot. It just hasn't blown us away. Like I thought we'd be maybe having some like Isaiah conversations around the leap he was going to take this year. He is who he is.
The only thing that surprised me is I didn't think he was going to start like 18% from 3 throughout the first like 8 games. And same with Derek, but there was no way.
And some teams do key in on him and take him out of the game. Like that does happen sometimes. And night to night, the consistency maybe isn't where you want it to be for a guy playing as large of a role on this team as he has. So it hasn't been perfect. There's some things you can nitpick here, but I do think people have been a little too hard on him.
Yeah, and again, it's probably just what I've realized about like fan bases is that a lot of times where like the critiques really ramp up is when there is a battle between like which 2 guys should be playing, right? And there's a frustration of like, why is the team going with this guy? Therefore, you start to really scrutinize that player. So I think that's kind of been what has kind of driven this idea that he's had like a bad season. Is just people were really excited to see Anthony Simons on the Celtics, and they were really excited to see a guy who's been averaging 20 points per game for the last 3 years join the team. And then they're like, why is he not playing the role that was anticipated? Which is fair. I think that they could get more out of him, and we saw that tonight. But yeah, I think it's been a good year for him so far. And him and Derek, again, both of those guys, their 3-point shooting is going to regress to the mean a little bit, even if it's not as good as it was last year. And so when I see Derek's shooting is like, he's one of the worst shooters in the league right now as far as shooting goes on high volume players. Like, I don't think that's going to hold. And I don't think the Payton Pritchard's 3-point struggles were going to hold. And we've already seen that change.
Yeah, and I like the Simons point because as much as I and others want to see a little more from Simons, want to see his role increased, it is almost impossible to argue against what Pritchard's done here. Like Pritchard hasn't struggled to the point where you'd be saying start Simons. Like we did get into dip our toe in that conversation earlier in the year, but even I was willing to have the conversation. I couldn't get there with where things were at because Pritchard was still doing enough. Pritchard was still playing overall better than Simons at that point, and I think the numbers bear that out. I think just watching the 2 guys and what they give you night in and night out bears that out. Not to say Simons has been a big disappointment or, he hasn't played to the level of being competitive with Pritchard. Like I do think on certain nights they can be interchangeable. I think Joe's willing to make that decision in spots, but I'd say on 8 or 9 out of 10 nights, Pritchard's given you just a little bit better overall production than Simons is here. So I think he's continued to earn that starting spot. The amount that this team relies on him, closing lineup duties, and that is the tough spot with Simons right now. Like even with White struggling to the level he has, how are you going to take White out of a game with all the different things he can do at any given moment in a game? How are you going to take Pritchard off the floor if he is playing well on any given night? And then you're like, all right, are we going to play 3 guards? Probably not. And that's a Simon's dilemma right there in a nutshell. A lot of it isn't what Simons isn't doing. It's just there's nowhere to put him in big spots or in extended minutes in a lot of these games. So that's where they're at in the backcourt. But it's been an interesting discussion all year because all three of those guys have really had some highs and lows.
For sure. Yeah.
So that's that. We want to shout out that the stream is moving. We've teased it a lot here, but the Garden Report stream will be exclusive on the CLNS media channel. So I'm sure a lot of you are watching this. I'll pull up some of the numbers here where everybody's watching. But for those of you who are watching on Celtics All Access, it's moving. So you want to subscribe to CLNS media. Why wouldn't you? All the press conferences are over there. A lot of great content. It's just amazing amount of content that you're getting over on CLNS media channel. So if for some reason you aren't subscribed over there and you're only subscribed to the Celtics All Access channel, make sure you're subscribed to both. Don't go away from the Celtics All Access channel. Still some podcasting content, exclusive videos, all kinds of good stuff over there still. So stay subscribed over there, but add CLNS media to your subscriptions as well to continue getting the Garden Report when we move that stream over soon. Final thoughts from this one, Noah. And if you want to look ahead here this week as we come out of the Thanksgiving weekend, you can as well, wherever you want to go with that.
No, just really good quality win. I thought Jaylen, Payton, Jordan, Xavier both did kind of really memorable things in this one for one reason or another. From like a writer's standpoint, like if I was there, I would be like, I don't even know who I should write about because there's so much going on. But great bounce back. They found ways to respond to tough losses this season pretty consistently. And another tough stretch is coming. They have the Knicks coming into town on Tuesday. They travel to the Wizards on Thursday. That should hopefully be an easier one, but we've seen sometimes those games can be tough as well. And then the Lakers, who have been one of the best teams in the league, honestly, come to town on Friday. So tough schedule. It continues, but a lot of these like automatic losses in theory that we've seen so far.
100%.
Like they've not just you. That wasn't even a shot at you, but like I think we've looked at the schedule and seen, Pistons, Cavs, Wolves back to back. Hayes missing 2 or 3 of those games. You would say like, okay, this is going to be a tough stretch as far as their record goes. But honestly, they've managed to surprise. So I think they'll probably steal one of those games, even though right now it seems like Knicks and Lakers are both going to be really tall tasks.
Yeah, the Knicks are going to be a tall task. The Lakers, I don't know. I got to take a longer look at them and what they've done to start this year. I'm not a big Lakers believer, but the Raptors also loom next Sunday, a week from today in Toronto, and that's going to be a tough one as well, the way this year has gone for them. And then you're into that NBA Cup week where there's going to be a lot of time off for this team. So there's been 2 stretches to start this year where they've played a ton of games in a short span. It was early with the 13 and 22 days, and now they're in a 6-game and 9-day stretch here. So not a huge surprise considering that they went with a rest night here and a difficult back-to-back. And somehow, some way, they did pull out a win from this one against the Cavs. Maybe they had an idea of how shorthanded the Cavs were going to be and identified this one as a good one. So pleasant surprise win here. This team continues to compete. I think I agree with that on any given night, they're going to find some way to be in a game here. And we're now 20 games into the season now. Like we are at that point where you start to judge them and understand who a team is and
on pace
for
45 wins.
Yeah, on pace
Exactly,
for
45.
the season we expected from them. I think they look like the kind of team we expected them to be here. And barring some catastrophic developments later this year or like the luxury tax tinkering or whatever's going to happen in the coming months here, it's still a long season to go. But all things being equal, if this kind of season continues for them, I think this is a borderline play-in, playoff team, depending on what happens elsewhere. And I do feel like a few East teams are starting to rise here that we didn't quite expect between Toronto and Orlando after their bad start and them turning it around here. So it's going to be a battle every night for the full season for this team to get where they want, but they're not bad. That's my big takeaway from the first 20 games now here. And I think almost everybody can universally agree on that, is that this team could have been bad and they're not bad.
I'm with you. I think that's for certain.
So that's my final thought from this one. Thanks to everybody for joining in. Great room to wrap the weekend here. Great chat as well tonight. Enjoyed a lot of the comments everybody threw here.
What a pleasant chat tonight. This chat was so much more pleasant than last night's
This is a really good chat.
It's
well,
crazy.
I mean, that's how it goes, right? They'll be Fire Joe on Tuesday again when the Knicks win. So,
I have to say, there are some usernames that were very loud yesterday that I did not see in the chat tonight. We missed you guys.
they'll be back.
This is the season. See you after the next loss.
This is the season, though. John was here, and we were having our ultimatum about
where's
the
John?
season.
Where's John?
He'll be back on Tuesday when they lose again, but tonight they got a great win, and it's just going to keep going back and forth. This is the life of a team that's floating around 500 or might end up being a 500 team, and we're trying not to ride the highs and lows too much. I think we've done a good job of telling this season what it is, and for all the people who want it to tank, it's not quite that.
Definitely not.
I want to address this one. Yeah, sorry. I did think that. I mean, what are you going to do? The whole team got hurt.
The whole team, the whole team broke down. But
sorry that I said the Pacers who went to the finals a year ago.
I kind of like a genuine sorry for me, Bobby. That was like that. I've never heard that before. I like that.
Hey, what are you gonna do? They went to the damn final. No one had the Pacers
now you don't
jersey
sound genuine
on.
anymore. For a second, you said sorry. I like the sound of that, but now you're defensive. So.
All right, I'll start saying sorry more. That actually might be needed for me. Sorry, whoever that was in the chat, G Martin. All right, a few shout outs before we wrap this for real. Check out PrizePicks. Great night to do it tomorrow. The Patriots are back in action, so head over there, add Drake May to your team, add the whole squad, Stephon Diggs, everybody. Put them in there, put them in your lineup, and pick more on their stat projections out there. That's my advice to you going into Monday's football game. So go check that out. Use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup over there. We're selling hard hats tomorrow, Cyber Monday, but you can get the code now, even before midnight. It is Cyber Monday when you head over there to the shop.clnsmedia.com store. That's shop.clnsmedia.com to go get yourself a hard hat for the next hard hat win. Jimmy might be wearing on I think Jimmy's back on Tuesday for Knicks Celtics. That'll be a hard hat kind of win if they win that one. And subscribe to You Got Boston, which comes out after every single game here and will again tonight. What are you talking about tonight, Noah?
Lots to talk about. Sorry, my thing froze. Lots to talk about, but there will be some positive takeaways. I think you guys can probably guess what those takeaways are.
Yeah, I like the Tillman thing. And as you said, it might be peace out on that tomorrow. He's had an interesting year. I'll say this
with
before
every
we
minute
go.
The show goes, the story is more likely to drop on Tuesday. I'm gonna be honest. Probably a Tuesday drop.
He's been awesome. I'll say that. So it's well worth a read. There's your tease. That's it for us here tonight. We're back on Tuesday. It's an 8 o'clock game, I believe, on Tuesday. Celtics Knicks. So that's gonna be fun. It should be a good crowd at the Garden. December starts. November is over for the Celtics here, and they end it with a win over the Cavs here. Pleasant surprise win. They were big underdogs and did not feel great about this one coming in. But this is the story of this team. For Noah Dalzell, I'm Bobby Manning. This has been the Garden Report. We will talk to you later this week. Peace.